Hi, boys and girls. I'm the reading teacher. Is there a favorite book that you have that you could read over and over and still love it every single time? This is that book for me. When I was little, my mom and dad used to read this book to me every Christmas season, and I would ask for it every single night, and it's still one of my favorites. The pictures aren't amazingly beautiful. There's not a lot of color, but it's just such a good story. And it rhymes, which I love trying to find all the rhyming words. Listen for those while I read Mr. Willowby's Christmas Tree. It's by Robert Barry. Here we go. Mr. Willowby's Christmas Tree. Mr. Willowby's Christmas tree came by special delivery, full and fresh and glistening green, the biggest tree he had ever seen. He dashed downstairs to open the door. This was the moment he'd waited for. "A magnificent tree, splendid!" he cried. "Please, sir, won't you carry it inside? I think it might look best this year, right in the parlor corner here." But once the tree stood in its place, Mr. Willowby made a terrible face. The tree touched the ceiling, then bent like a bow. "Oh, good heavens!" he gasped. "Something must go." What do you think they're going to do to the tree? Should they take off a little bit of it? Baxter the butler was called on in haste to chop off the top, though it seemed quite a waste. "That's great!" Mr. Willowby cried with glee. "Now we can start to trim my tree." When the trimming was well underway, the top was placed on a silver tray. Baxter said, "I know just who'd be delighted with this Christmas tree." So it was presented to Miss Adelaide, Mr. Willowby's upstairs maid. Now she gets a little tree. "Won't this be a pretty sight when I have trimmed it later tonight? But the top, oh dear, I'm so afraid will have to be cut," sighed Miss Adelaide. And so with scissors sharp and long, she snipped off the top while she hummed a song. The top was set out the very next day in the back of the house to be thrown away. That little treetop caught the eye of Tim the gardener passing by. He certainly was not about to see that little tree thrown out. He hurried it right home straight away to see what Mrs. Tim would say. "Fa la la, surprise, surprise!" His wife could not believe her eyes. "But our house," she said, "is so snug and small. I do not believe we need it all." And before Tim had a chance to shout, she cut off the top and threw it out. There it is. Now, if this is following the same pattern as the rest of the story, what do you think might happen? Who do you think might get the next bit of treat? Barnaby Bear was padding by. It almost hit him in the eye. Now, who would throw a tree away so very close to Christmas Day? "I'll take it home, that's what I'll do. Look, Mama Bear, I've a present for you." "Oh, isn't it a pretty tree?" yawned Mama Bear quite drowsily. "Before we go to sleep this year, let's have a Christmas party, dear." But Little Bear, standing off far, cried out, "That tree won't hold a star." Barnaby said, "Let's cut a hunk off at the bottom, here at the trunk." But Mama Bear just shook her head and sliced the treetop off instead. "Jolly by golly," Barnaby said with a kick. "Mama, that surely is just the right trick. Let's trim it with bells and honey rings, some berries and tinsel and popcorn on strings." Mama said, "Trim it just as you like. I've got to tidy up for the night. This top we won't need any more. I'll put it just outside the door." Are you making a prediction of who you think might get the tree next? Later on that frosty night, Frisky Fox came into sight. He spied the treetop, rubbed his chin, opened his sack, and stuffed the top in. He scampered home and jumped his gate. This Christmas present couldn't wait. It's even better than mincemeat pie, said Mrs. Fox with a happy sigh. Then the foxes saw that their Christmas prize was just a wee bit oversize. There, my dears, now don't you worry. I'll fix this top now in a hurry. And look, she cut off the top. Benjamin Rabbit found it then, just outside the fox's den. It seems, he thought, most certainly Santa left that for my family. Look, he cried, see the tree I found? With that he called his family round. Then there was a merrymaking, rollicking, frolicking, carrot-shaking celebration around the tree. All were happy as rabbits can be. Benjamin Rabbit with his own hand sliced a carrot to make a stand. Now let's see how this will look in our little chimney nook. But right away the children cried, look, it's leaning off to one side. It's too tall, that's all, said Mrs. Rabbit. And as though it were a summer carrot, she gave it a chop and threw away the top. All right, let's stop and predict. We've had a bear, and then a fox, and then a rabbit. Do you notice how they're going in order from big to little? Who do you think could be next? I'm thinking it must be an animal littler than a rabbit. Then Mistletoe Mouse just happened to see that tiny tip of a Christmas tree. He pulled it through the snow and ice, up some stairs. He fell down twice. At last he reached his cozy home. It's just the right size, said Mrs. Mouse. Then at the top, if you please, they put a star made out of cheese. Oh, wasn't it grand to have a tree exactly like Mr. Willowby? And I love imagining the little party that the mice are having, looking out their little house and seeing this gigantic tree in Mr. Willowby's living room. I hope you enjoyed that Christmas story. There are so many good Christmas books, but this is one of my favorites. And it's okay to read a book over and over and over again if you love it. Have a great day, boys and girls. I'll see you soon.